So Janice, you're widely known for your ability to increase the placement of women and these underrepresented executives onto, boards and into C-suites. And I can see like your passion for it is just so relevant. And you're doing it in New York City, right? The best city in the world. So that's impressive. Congratulations. How did this become such a passion for you?
So I have to go back to my career was basically corporate America for many years. And then I co-authored a book called What Every Successful Woman Knows with Bill Moran, who was the chairman of Drake Beam and Moran. He was a friend of mine. He'd written 16 books, right? So I walked up to Bill one day and I said, Bill, how would you actually do a book with me? He said, oh, that'd be a great idea. I had no idea how to publish a book, right? But he did. But I had this idea about how women could succeed, should succeed, but they were not at the table. And this was through the 1990s, right? So we published the book in 2000, and it was all about women having a voice at the table and how could they do that? What did they need to do? How could they market themselves? How could they get into the network? And so in interviewing those women and seeing that they did not have a chance, really, at that point in time,
It's 2000.
I wanted to do something about it. And I had to go back to what my mother told me when I was 10 years of age, and I was the youngest of three daughters, 11 and 7 years older than me, so I was like an only child. And she said, Janice, you got two sisters. Stay close to them. Always support your sisters. Be financially independent and love what you do. So I expanded my sisterhood to a great number of sisters and said, after doing this book, I really wanted to put women in the C-suite and the boardroom and have a voice at the table. Because, in 2011, 16.7% women on boards was the representation. And so in 2011, I also launched a Breakfast of Corporate Champions with the Women's Forum of New York. I was president there. I said, I'm going to be president of this organization. I want to make sure we make an impact. And that was, shining a light on companies that were making an impact. So with Surge and with the Breakfast of Corporate Champions, we're now we did the last one in 2023. We'll do it again in 2025. We're moving the needle. Women on boards is now 33%. Are we there yet? No. But the genesis of this is really my mother saying, stay close to your sisters.
That's so impressive. They have to be so proud.
I want to add, though, that when we're presenting candidates, we present the most outstanding candidates. So you as a Caucasian man, if you're the best of the bunch on my list of people, you should be chosen. What's happened is, though, most of my clients will select the woman or the underrepresented, the more diverse person, because they're so outstanding. The pool of people are out there. You just have to find them.
Yeah. Bloomberg Business Week called you one of the most influential headhunters in the world. And when you talk about these applicants and who's the best applicant, what does that dream profile kind of look like in your eyes?
Oh, there's no one dream profile. It's really depending upon the position that you're seeking, right? So I'd say the competencies have to be there for that particular company, whether it's a board seat, a senior level position in the company. But then I look for things, and my team looks for things that are the attributes of an individual. Do they have great character, integrity at the top? Are they intellectually curious? Are they compassionate and caring? Are they collaborative? Meaning you don't want to just be the one-man show. You got to work as a team. And I think that that's really important in looking at and how people have followed you. So we look for executives, right, who have had a following. When I do references, a lot comes out, or it doesn't come out, right? And then you hear that this is maybe not the person that's right for this role.
I can only imagine the stories you get through the references.
Well, people tell their own story. You're asking me to tell a little bit of my story. That's what I do with my podcast, and that's what I do with my interviews. I want to get to the core, the metal of somebody. What drives them? Why are they here? You had a wonderful guest on, Sanjeev Chopra, right? And he talked about one's purpose in life. It could be big, it could be huge, it could be changing the world, or it could be changing one person at a time. And for me, it's if we can influence the life of one person at a time for every search we do, we're making an impact, right? But that person has to make an impact on others as well. They can't just be wrapped up in themselves, because that makes for a very small package.
Well said.
Yeah.
You mentioned your podcast. You're 60 amazing episodes in. Congratulations. and your guests are just incredible, right? The CEO of Chevron, your network is clearly at the A+ game. I'm curious why you started the podcast.
So this was just pre-pandemic, 2019. My search firm had been in business for 47 years, sorry. By that time, 45 years. Anyway, it was a time when we were reinventing ourselves, reimagining search, because my partners had left and now it was just Ellig Group. And so in reinventing ourselves, reimagining search, we wanted to hear what were on the minds of the leaders, of the mainly corporate executives, but also a lot of not-for-profit executives. What was on issues on their minds, and how could we solve or be helpful in terms of some of the solutions we could offer? So it started by, so tell us about your journey, right? So whether it be Mike Wirth of Chevron or Julie Sweet of Accenture, and what they were looking for in leaders, because it helps us when we're interviewing candidates for the leaders for these different companies. So yeah, I feel extremely honored to have had one guest after another each and every month is just exceptional. And they all have different stories and wonderful stories.
Can you share who you're doing next?
Yeah, I'm doing Ken Frazier,
Nice.
former CEO and chair of Merck. And Ken is just another incredible human being in terms of the stance he's taken with regard to social issues. He's trying to really, on 110, get 1 million Black individuals into sustainable employment over the next 10 years. He's part of a group doing this, and he's led a remarkable company, Merck, for so many years. He's just a wonderful, wonderful person.
That's cool. What do you think has surprised you the most by me? I'm sure you knew a lot of these people previously, but you've also, probably gotten to meet them for the first time through the podcast. Is there anything that stands out that's kind of like surprised you as a common theme through the 60?
The themes they talk a lot about leadership. They talked a lot about DEI. They talked a lot about the workplace and going back to work, or how was this going to be for employees? How were they going to meet the needs of employees? The compassion that they all have is really, I think, commendable. I mean, they just really care about people. And I think if you don't have people in your organization, you don't have anything. You could have AI, but who created the AI? Who creates the technology? Who uses it? It's people. So I think it's not a revelation as much as it's confirmation that these are remarkable leaders of companies. And yeah, I learned from each and every one of them. Interested to hear now what Ken has to say about the new world order.
That's going to be fun. You'll have to check it out on Leadership Reimagined. What I found most impressive about the leaders that I look up to is their ability to be so confident that they can hire others who are better than them without feeling threatened. And that's what they say, right? It's just like, hire people better than me, and that's what makes me a great leader.
Right. And I think that's, again, not wrapping yourself up in your own little package and saying, I can do it all, right? So there's that African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so I think those are the leaders. One of the podcasts I did was with Doug Peterson, who's the CEO of S&P Global. And they acquired IHS Markit recently, which is a huge acquisition. And that was started by Jerry Stead, who we both know from Iowa. But what was interesting is that Doug said when he travels the world, he will meet with an employee in different locations and take a day in the life of. So it's a day in the life of that employee. He is learning about what's going on the front line. And so imagine that employee, how good they feel to be sitting next to the CEO, right? And the CEO is listening as much as speaking with that individual. So the listening aspect of a great leader must be there, right? Because they learn so much. Yeah. So I was so impressed. I said, Doug, that's terrific.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Good for Doug.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to take it back. Where did you grow up?
So I was born in New York City.
Woo, New Yorker in the building.
And spent the first 5 years in New York, and then moved to Westchester County, where I was really spent the formative high school years. Yeah.
Okay, now let's take a left turn. We met in Iowa.
We did.
How did Iowa come onto your radar from New York?
Yeah. So the oldest in the family, Elaine, went to Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. Adrienne, the middle sister, went to Briarcliff Junior College, got her 2-year degree, and then wanted to go on for her 4-year degree. And my parents, we didn't have much means. We didn't really have the money. Her credits all were accepted by the University of Iowa. So she went to Iowa, and I followed her 7, 8 years later. And that's how I got it. I was on the waiting list at Cornell. I wasn't the greatest student in high school. So
You were not?
I was not.
Really?
It's okay. I was okay.
You have other talents.
Well, I find that, again, if you're really determined in life, and I didn't go to an Ivy school either, but I feel like I've done pretty well, and it's not necessarily.
You've done very well, Janice.
It's not necessarily about, where you went to school or how you really did in high school. It's what you did along the way. And that's why when I'm interviewing people, I want to know, okay, and I interview a lot who, some were valedictorians. And I say, oh, that's great. And some went on to Ivies. That's great. And some didn't, but they're highly successful. And because they're determined that nothing's going to stand in their way, and they're going to make sure that they move ahead in terms of what their passion is. So I think I've done that to my, satisfaction. And Iowa just gave me so many opportunities, and being on the board and chairing the foundation board during COVID was a big learning experience. Sitting next to the Jerry Steads and John Papajohns and Henry Tippie's iconic leaders that not everybody knows their name, but if you knew them, wow, they are great humility, great leaders, and great in giving back. And their purpose in life was to make a difference on this planet. And they all went to the University of Iowa. They were from Iowa. So I'm glad I had that opportunity. It's really been fantastic. Yeah, and now I have a scholarship in my sister's name out there that I started because she passed away.
Wow.
Yeah, so 25 years ago. So we're celebrating our 25th anniversary this year. And so the women who have gotten the scholarship, which was master's level in the School of Public Health, the youngest is like 21 or 22, and she wasn't even born when I started this, right, 25 years ago. So it's the ages of the recipients are like 22 to 47.
What a cool way to honor her legacy.
These women are amazing, amazing. They're running medical centers. They're leading teams of people, and each and every one of them has stayed in the field of public health, regardless of them having children, being married. They've just all been committed. I'm so lucky to have them. Smart as a whip they are. And I always say, stay close to the younger generation because you learn so much from them. So I'm learning from them.
Especially lingo, right? You're like, hey, where did these words come from?
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. How did your sister pass away?
She had a bladder cancer, which is so unusual for a woman and unusual for a non-smoker.
She was 46? Is your other sister still around?
Yes, my oldest sister still, yes. So,
wow, I'm sorry that you had to go through that.
But, you look at the inspiration of those, and my sister, both my sisters have been so inspiring to me. And so now these young ladies are so inspiring to me. And they're also starting scholarships or giving to this scholarship. So, yeah. So it's nice to share the Iowa connection with you.
It really is.
And you, I think, know Jerry Stead, too.
I do. Yeah, I got to meet him when I was working at the foundation as a fellow. And then I actually was back in Iowa City for a Medtronic meeting a couple weeks ago, and he was speaking for their new campaign.
Oh, yes.
And so I got to go and see him speak.
Yes.
Which was really nice. And then I listened to him on your podcast. And he talked about the rubber band reference.
Yes.
Right. And what he says is, hey, sometimes in life you have to stretch the rubber band, and you got to stretch as far as you can.
Right.
And sometimes it's going to break on you. And that's okay, because at least you found out what your bandwidth and what you're capable of doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's just so brilliant.
That's the effort plus ability equals output. Jerry will stretch it, as far as he can go. I mean, Jerry's somebody who gets up at 3 a.m, right?
Do you get up at 3?
He gets up at 3.
Do you?
No. I do not.
Shailene told me, I was like, hey, can I call Janice? She's like, well, she's booked from about 8 a.m. to about 9 p.m. Solid. I'm like, oh my gosh, this woman is doing it.
You got to cram a lot into the 24 hours.
Amen.
I don't need a lot of sleep, but Jerry's remarkable about that. And, I think I've learned a lot from him also about trusting your employees, making sure that, they take ownership I mean, he's been known to throw out policy books at companies. He's been CEO of 10 companies because he said, I needed to see what the employees wanted and what to do, as opposed to going through big bureaucracy.
Yeah. Yeah, you said 10 companies. One of them was Clarivate, $5 billion company. I think him and his wife have given away over like $400 million, or committed it at least. So an incredible man, very generous couple. I'm curious, with the rubber band reference, can you think of a time where you were stretching the rubber band and it snapped on you and smacked you a little bit?
Oh, that's a good question. Did it snap back at me? Well, maybe a little bit with when we took a company public from Citibank, and I was, running HR, and then I was given marketing, and I was given facilities as well, or real estate. And so I always said I was in charge of bathrooms, bonuses, and brochures, right? But my CEO gave me all of those things. And now I was working with the board. Well, at Citibank, you had a lot of people behind you to help you with lots of, tasks. And I looked behind me, there was nobody. It was me. We were a small company, but we were Fortune 500. And I really had to stretch that rubber band. And there were times that I made mistakes, because I'd never been in charge of HR before. I was working with executives. I was working with a publicly traded company. I was working with the board. But I always say, fail fast, make your mistakes, and move on. And, you can't cry over it. You have to pull up yourself by the bootstraps and move on. So, I stretched it there. But for the most part, I think stretching is good. It's like using that muscle and making sure that muscle will work the next time really well. But I know what I'm not good at. So I know I'm not great at social media. So I have somebody in my office who's great at social media. I have a chief of staff that's incredible. She's been with me 17 years, right? She reads my mind, right? I have, most of my team members have been there over a decade. Yeah.
That says a lot about you.
Says a lot about them also taking ownership. It's an adult organization. Everybody cares about the employees. They care about the candidates. They care about the clients we're working with. They want to make sure nothing goes wrong, and a lot of things can go wrong,
How fun is that to see?
It is, making a difference in people's lives, connecting people, and they come back and they say, thank you for this opportunity. I never would have known that I could do that in that role. And seeing them not only take great gratification out of that, but also to succeed. I mean, some of our individuals have gone on to be a CEO of the company, and others have just moved up and moved on and just done a great job. So that's really gratifying for us.
That's cool. The team dynamic, I'm always impressed with, like, the culture, right? Even you go to Chick-fil-A and you're like, oh my gosh, the culture here. But with you saying, chief of staff has been there 17 years and she reads your mind, that's such a fun thing when you can communicate without even using words.
Right.
I find when you have that much history with somebody, that becomes reality.
I called her this morning. She said, no, I know what you want. I said, okay.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. And social media, as long as they get my voice, I say, just go with it. So we're constantly reinventing ourselves out there. And I think letting ourselves be known to our clients that, hey, we're real people. We really care about you. We're not going to tell you what the solution is for you, but we want to hear what you have to say. So we want to really get behind the curtain and understand, what is your strategy going forward? How can we be helpful? How can we tell you about the market conditions that are happening at other companies, other countries? So it's that kind of knowledge and conversation having, with clients, that's really helpful. And we feel, I don't ever want to feel on the outside of the company. I want to be the external arm of that company. I want to be the ambassador. I want to be able to tell the story of that CEO and that company to potential candidates and just in general. And that's why I do the podcast too. I want people to know the stories of these great leaders. So I'm looking forward to the next 5 years for another 60. So we just renewed our lease, so we're doing it.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Congratulations. You're so committed, right, to the placement of these just amazingly talented, women and underrepresented executives, like we said.
And Caucasian, great Caucasian men.
Thank you. And I think that it's such a worthy cause, right? And there's so much work to be done. You said 33% of boards have women now?
The S&P 500.
Okay.
The average is 33%.
Okay. I wonder what it was in like 2000. I'm sure it was.
So in 2000, well, if it was 16.7% in 2011, it was probably like 10%. because it was only moving at 0.5% a year. And that, maybe even lower than 10%. So, what was happening in about 2010 was overseas. You'd had 2003, you had Norway with quotas, right? The first country. And they were having quotas to have 40% women on the boards. And the companies, said to the government, well, we can do it on our own. So they didn't pass the legislation. The next year, the same number, they were like at 8%, 9%, 10%. And so the government finally said, you're not doing it on your own. We're going to establish quotas. Well, within 2 years, they were at 40% women on their boards. Now, that's stretching it a bit because it's a small country. There weren't that many women for the board. So there was some problems built into that. But, 2003, 4, 5, overseas quotas were going into place. 2010, you had Helena Morrissey in the UK starting the 30% club. And with Lord Davis, they were really working on the FTSE 100 to try and move the needle there. So you had quotas, you had targets, but you had nothing in the United States. And that's why, as I said in 2011, why we started the Breakfast of Corporate Champions when I was president of the Women's Forum, because we were trying to make a difference here in the United States without targets, without shaming, but shining the light on those companies that were really moving the needle. So we were honoring those. And when it was 16.7%, we were honoring it 20%. Now we're honoring it 40%. Next time we do it, probably honor it at 50%. We're always raising the bar. So we're really acknowledging those leaders. And some of the people on my podcast have been the ones who've been honored. So, moving the needle is something that everybody has to focus on. And I know there's a lot of controversy about DEI right now, but you have to recognize it's still more Caucasian men are running these companies and more Caucasian men are on board. So you have to have all boats rise. It's not eliminating any group. It's just making sure you're including every group and that the network of women and diverse candidates is known to boards and C-suite executives. So you're not just looking at one pool of candidates. You're not just fishing in one pool all the time. You have to really search sometimes for those individuals, but they're there.
I'm curious about that. How do you find those new groups? Like, I'm a hiring manager. I have an opening right now, and I want to make sure that I'm pulling from a really wide, kind of net.
Yeah.
So what advice do you have for people who are these hiring managers to make sure that they're capturing kind of a diverse candidate pool?
Well, you can always use a great search firm, and we'd love to help. I think the important thing is if you want to find a diverse candidate, go to the community where that diverse candidate probably is. So we go to a lot of women's groups. We go to the Executive Leadership Council. We go to the Latino Association. Those are the communities with the diverse candidates, right? They're hanging out together, So, but if you want to go to the golf club and the golf course, although there are a lot of women on the golf course today, but you probably
do you golf?
I do golf.
Nice.
I'm not very good, but I have a good swing.
It's so hard.
I just don't always hit the ball right. So you have to go to the community. You have to go to the pool of candidates where you're going to find them. And we work very closely with all of those groups. We work hard to find the candidates. And it is not always that CEO or somebody who's maybe in the C-suite, yes, but it could be somebody below the C-suite who has just a fabulous talent.
In terms of just bringing equality to the workplace, do you have any other advice for our listeners as to what we can do to help contribute to further accelerate the needle moving?
Yeah, so there's a great study by McKinsey and Lean In, and it talks about the issues that women have in terms of moving up the ladder. And they've been doing that survey and research for, I think, 8 years. It's always the same. The results are basically the same. Women don't always have a champion. They're not always, visible in the organization. It's not necessarily dropping out to have children. It's oftentimes the invisible, that they become the invisible person and they're not really seen and they're not really regarded. So I think we have to pay attention as leaders, not just by the CEO, but throughout the company or the organization, that we're really looking at who's the talent, where's the talent, am I looking at what they're really achieving? And we can't be blind. Sometimes we're blind to what's going on in a company. particularly the higher up you are. And I think that's why a day in the life of and sitting with a frontline worker is really important, right?
It's such a cool thing. You could, and I'm sure you do, run a masterclass on a lot of different topics, and I think especially leadership. What would your 3 key pillars of your leadership masterclass be?
Well, I do think it starts with integrity and character at the top. I mean, that you have to have that. You can't buy that. I think, another piece of it is really that collaboration. You have to work as a team together. And I think the intellectual curiosity is really important today to keep up with what's going on. And so, but there's so many things. Leadership is not just one attribute or one competency. It's the whole gestalt of it, and I think learning from others. I try and learn every day. I play with Chat GPT. I want to know, what it will tell me. But then, you just have to step back and listen and learn from your people. I'm a leader that's a little bit impatient at times. I know that. I want it done yesterday. I'm impatient with myself. I hold myself to a pretty high standard, and I hold my team to a pretty high standard. The good news is they hold themselves to a pretty high standard too, right? So as a leader, you're always learning. So a master class, I think, is daily. I think a master class, you have to listen to a lot of podcasts, you have to listen to a lot of experts, and then you have to come to your own conclusions about using your good judgment and common sense about what's the right decision to make in each situation. I will say that I think leadership today is harder than it's ever been, because the world is moving so fast. And if you don't pivot and you're not agile and you don't look at life and say, hey, maybe this ship is going in the wrong direction. We have to turn it around. We have to stop at different ports. We have to change our products, our services. You're going to be caught short, and you're not going to be sustainable, and you're not going to be successful. And if you are not successful, then your employees are not going to be having jobs. So it's tough to be a great leader today. And I think, we can all grow and recognize that you have needs as an employee, right? Where you run your own show, but I have to recognize those. And when this back to work issue has been coming to the workplace, well, the frontline workers, the firefighters, the nurses, they have to continue to go in, right?
There's no breaks.
But then we shut down in terms of corporate America, but then we came back, and some are coming back 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 4 days a week. One size doesn't fit all. So the leader really has to recognize what's going to work in this organization. And a lot are saying, I need people back in the office 4 days a week. Why? Because we become more innovative, we'll become more collaborative, and it's important for us because of our clients as well, right? So that may work, but you may have some employees that can't do that, particularly people who have elder care or child care. So you have to just be attuned to what are the needs of individuals. So it's hard, not easy. And I think this year is going to be a very challenging year, a good year, but a challenging year.
You mentioned holding yourself to an exceedingly high standard. How does that manifest?
Well, you should ask my people.
I'm more curious about the internal dialogue that happens in Janice's head.
Well, I'm fortunate I have a very good memory, right? But I'm one of those multitaskers. So I said, do we do this? Do we do that? So I will drive Camille crazy a little bit of time. Is this done? Is that done?
Your chief of staff.
My chief of staff. And my rest of my team too, So I'm just always ping-ponging in my head, if things happened, what else do we need to do? How can we make this go more smoothly? I had sometimes a little crowded.
Do you ever feel like you're too critical of yourself?
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely.
So what do you do to try to help that?
I do Pilates.
I gotta try Pilates. Every badass woman I know is just like killing the Pilates.
I know. I have the best 2 instructors, they're just great. Because I'm not really good about exercise on my own. I need somebody to show me and tell me what to do. I just succumb.
Yeah, right.
The other thing is I watch, great movies on Netflix. I do some shows that are just no-brainers, and I relax in front of a fireplace, and I do that. Yeah.
I love a good fireplace.
I know. I did it last night here in New York.
Oh,
yeah.
I want a fireplace. Well, I don't have one right now. I need one.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What other things do you do for like joy in your everyday life? Are there other things?
I really love to cook. Yeah. And I also love to be on different not-for-profit boards. So I've been on, as I said, I'm on the foundation board at Iowa. I'm on the Actors Fund. I was on the Actors Fund board, now called the Entertainment Community Fund. I believe actors are out of work all the time, so I really support them.
What does that board do?
That board supports actors, basically, in terms of when they're out of work, health insurance, yeah, all those things. And so not just Broadway, it's all the way from Broadway to LA. Yeah. Annette Benning is the chair of the Entertainment Community Fund. Yeah. And Brian Stokes Mitchell, better known as Stokes, just stepped down as chair. He's been chair for 11 years. So these are great individuals who are giving back to the, not just actors, but, the people behind the scenes, doing the cameras and such. Yeah. You're a person here today.
Yeah. Wolf.
Yeah.
Shout out to Wolf. Thank you for everything. Okay, I have to ask, did you see Saltburn, the movie? Everyone in LA is talking about it right now.
I have to see it. No, I started, and then I turned it off. It was a little too intense for that evening.
It's intense. I told my friend, I'm like, don't watch this with your kids.
Really? Oh, well, maybe I just started just a little bit.
I think you cut short. Yeah, there's a couple scenes that pretty intense.
But that's a way of relaxing. I love to entertain. We've been doing our holiday party for the past 27 years. I had 100 people at this holiday party. Yeah. My staff comes. And then I do things at my home for charities too. I think part of what I do in life, and I do think it's a bit of a calling, I love connecting people. And so whether it's through a social event or, it's a party or a fundraising event, I connect people. I mean, sometimes friends will say, oh, I got together with so-and-so or I met at your party, but we forgot to ask you. I say, no, you don't need to ask me. You two go enjoy each other, get to know each other. I like to connect people. And that's what we do in search, right? Connecting people with the right people.
Yeah. You've become one of the most well-connected people that I know. And I'm curious how you...
I'm not done yet.
Damn right.
I am not done. No. Many more people I want to meet. Yeah.
That's so fun. And that's what's exciting about life, right? So that like keeps you going.
Yeah.
But to get to this point thus far, how do you feel like you've been able to cultivate these deep relationships?
So I would say since graduating from college, I have always been in some professional association, some group. When I was at a medical center early on in my career, and I was head of HR for this medical center in beautiful downtown Camden, New Jersey, by the way. I became president of the HR Association of Hospitals. So I've always been affiliated with groups. And I do believe people need to expand their networks early on. So I've always been a connector.
Were you pretty social growing up?
Yeah, I think I was I don't know about so much social as just, yes, trying out for sports and, basketball and softball. Yeah, all that. Yeah, so I guess I was pretty social. Yeah. I just like, being in groups, but I also like my own company. I'm fine being alone too.
Do you travel alone ever?
I do, mainly on business. And my husband and I actually, if there's a flag, he counts it. So we've been to 150 countries. Yeah.
150?
But if there's a flag, he counts it. So Sicily has a flag, he counts that as a country. Yeah.
What's the craziest country you've been to?
Papua New Guinea. Twice.
What's a country you think everybody needs to go to?
Oh, dear. Well, I always want to go back to Italy because I love Italy.
What do you just like the food?
My mother was actually born in Italy. Yeah. And so I saw the home where she left when she was 11 years of age to come here. But where the Italy is in the Alps, it was a stone-like hut, right? Not a hut, but it was a stone house and it had a fire. But, and so see where one of your parents came from, right? There's still a great affiliation for that country. And I, I'm very humble and I have a lot of humility because I see where I am today and where she came from, and so I'm really grateful for where I am. But where somebody should go,
150, I can't believe that.
I don't know. It depends. I loved Africa. I loved the Far East.
Africa changes you.
Africa does change you, and it's many different countries in Africa. Its continent is like very dispersed. Where do you want to go?
Oh my gosh. So I went to Nepal a year and a half ago.
Yes. Isn't that wonderful?
And it grabbed me.
Yes.
And I came back and my neighbor in Boulder, Colorado could see it in my eyes. And he's like, well, I've been on this board that's based out of Nepal. 25 years ago, his friend came across an orphanage, an all-women's orphanage that had been abandoned. And the climbers just were like, we got to take it over. And so 25 years later, it's called the Z Foundation. And now they work in the most rural communities doing income generation projects, right? Teaching people how to farm and setting up these ecosystems and whatnot. Very local, community driven. So I got to take his board seat for it. And so, yeah, I'm going to go back in March and actually go to the communities.
Right. It's very spiritual, isn't it? You really feel, and when people are dying, they put their feet into the water, so that they can connect to the earth. There was a temple that we went to and I saw that. Yeah, traveling is your best education. You see so much and you realize poverty levels as countries are really, really suffering. But there's a beauty about them too.
I think it's just so grounding. Like, it's just so nice to just like throw your suits in the corner and like all that extra stuff and just strip it down bare bones, I feel like. And for me, it's just very resetting. And I come back to this renewed energy.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It makes you want to really give more too, because in fact, one of the people that I placed to be CEO of Amalgamated Bank, Priscilla Brown, her mother was in the Senate in Ethiopia under Haile Selassie. Haile Selassie was really a remarkable leader until he was overthrown and then, we believe, assassinated. But her mother started an organization called Project Mercy, which was building houses, hospitals, schools for people. And it's really transformed a lot of the country. So I actually want to go there in September with Priscilla to Ethiopia and see Project Mercy and what's happened. To me, if you could put, $10,000 or whatever and build a hospital or whatever, you'll pool your money. You can do so much with a little bit of money in countries like that and change people's lives dramatically. Mm-hmm. So we're very fortunate and it's a privilege to give, but I think you have to see it up front and then say, this is where I want to have my cause. Andy Code, who is now the chair of the University of Iowa Foundation, is, he and his wife Sue are really very committed to Africa and have done a lot there. I'm trying to get Andy to go to Ethiopia too.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the next Africa adventure, so maybe I'll call him.
Well, okay. We'll take you to Ethiopia with us.
That would be amazing. Yeah. That would be such an honor. You're a very giving person. I mean, from all your philanthropic activities to even coming on this podcast, taking time out to come down to the studio, thank you. And I'm curious how you decide what you're going to pour into and give to, because I'm sure you have a million things and people pulling at you.
Yeah. I say this to people too. When you go on a board or you go involved in an organization, make sure you feel it. Make sure that this is something that resonates with your core about who you are, because you can only spread yourself so thin. And I think that I have spread myself maybe too thin at times. So I try to come off of organizations at the right time and make sure that I give that seat up to somebody else. And if I can do it and I can fit it in, I'm really very organized. So, when I say I'm a little critical about myself, it's because I want to make sure that those timelines are all met. And if I fail at something, okay, maybe I can't do it this week, I'll do it next week. So, I think you just have to pick and choose. It has to resonate with you.
You talk about your parents' upbringing versus kind of what you've been able to create for yourself. I'm curious if there's a moment that sticks out to you, Janice, where you were like, I've kind of made it.
Haven't made it yet. I think you should always have that rubber band, right? The next goal, the next goal, the next goal. I'm a very happy person. I don't regret things. If I do, I say, okay, let's put that beside us and move on. I think, I'm happy with my life. But I'm always striving to what am I going to do next? And sometimes it's going to be totally different. So I just said I signed a new 5-year lease for this business. We'll do that. But I think there's also this piece of me that wants to do something globally. So that's why I mentioned, Ethiopia. I think there's something that there's another purpose that I have here. I'm still searching for what that might be. So in the meantime, I'm really going to build this business and dedicate myself to the not-for-profits that I'm involved with.
Is there anything else that most excites you about your future?
More podcasts. I think that the future is one that's going to be very, very difficult over the next 5 years. I think we're going to have to navigate a geopolitical situation that's going to be tough. And so I think we need to all just enjoy every single day as it comes and be grateful for what we have and have goals. But, as we make plans, God, she laughs because they change. And so I think the world is just going to be one that we have to navigate very carefully. Yeah. I'm really excited about celebrating the 25th anniversary of these incredible women from the School of Public Health at the University of Iowa. I'm excited about also, again, continuing the Breakfast of Corporate Champions and moving more women into the C-suite and the boardroom. And we have started also something called a Board Academy Boot Camp that I acquired from Maggie Wilderotter, who's been on 51 boards since the age of 28. She's a remarkable executive. And so this is a boot camp where we're really training, a day-and-a-half program, where we're really training people to how to get on a board, how to start the process. And I have executives and really seasoned board members who come in and do that training. And personally, I just hope my family, my husband, he's writing a book, another book.
He's done a couple?
He's done a lot of books, a lot of articles. He was at Pfizer for many years, head of HR. So he's written 4 books, 4 basically reference manuals, 1,000+ pages on the complete guide to executive compensation. And now he's writing a book on the 46 presidents. And it's called Presidents, Politics, and what's the last one? It's going to kill me if I don't remember it. I thought it was In Pay, but it's really about, what the presidents did. It's like 45 pages for each president. So he's compiled information from all sources about each president, starting with George Washington and through to the current Biden.
Oh, he has to be learning so much.
Oh, I'm learning so much, in terms of what they like to eat for breakfast, the impact of the wife, on that president. And so I said, don't forget the ladies, Bruce. Yeah, he's been my biggest supporter. He's really a champion for me. And then inspirationally, I also go back to my sisters and my parents who are also big inspirations. But Bruce will always say to me, yep, you go for it. You go for it.
Yeah.
And so I'd have.
The ultimate partner.
Yeah.
But Janice, you have this insane just presence about you, and you're just so humble through everything you've been able to accomplish, so intentional, so wise. Just being in your presence is like such a gift, I feel like, and you just know how to make people feel good about themselves, but also challenge them and hold them accountable, I feel like. And so I just want to say congratulations on everything that you've been able to accomplish, and thank you for letting me and our listeners get to experience and learn through it.
I have loved your podcasts, and you really get to the heart of different people. And I'm learning about that purpose-driven life that so many talked about. And some are very funny, in terms of their lives and how they got to where they are today. So I'm honored that you asked me to be here, and I appreciate it. So
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Andrew.
Absolutely. Hopefully we can do a round 2 sometime.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Janice.